Raging wildfires have forced more than 300,000 people out of their homes in California. And that's our first story this Wednesday on CNN 10. Thank you for watching. I'm Carl Azuz. A woman from the town of Paradise, which is in Northern California, thought her life was over when her car was surrounded by flames. She called her husband, who told her to get out and run. She did, feeling around through the ash until she reached a fire engine. Firefighters pulled her inside, and a bulldozer came through and cleared a path for them to escape. This is one of the harrowing stories about the Camp Fire, the name of the blaze in Northern California. It is now the deadliest wildfire in the state's recorded history. It has killed 42 people and scorched 125,000 acres. That's bigger than the size of Atlanta, Georgia. 6,500 homes and 260 commercial buildings have been lost to the Camp Fire. A council member from the town of Paradise told the San Francisco Chronicle that 95% of his town is gone, and the Camp Fire continues to burn. There are two other major fires still going in the state. The Hill Fire in Southern California has burned more than 4,500 acres, but as of last night, it was mostly contained, meaning surrounded and prevented from spreading. That isn't the case with the Woolsey Fire. It's also in Southern California and was only 35% contained yesterday. It has burned more than 96,000 acres and destroyed at least 435 buildings. And hurricane-force gusts of wind of at least 74 miles per hour or higher were whipping through the canyons. That only helps wildfires travel faster.
We're on the outskirts of the Woolsey Fire right now. You can see we're on the other side of the 101 freeway. It's already jumped, and this is what officials fear. You feel this wind that's been coming through. It's contributed a lot to these flames spreading, and you can see how low the visibility actually is here right now. This place is actually a little bit too unsafe for us to be right now, so we're going to try and get to a safer location. But you see this wind coming through. Again, this is a fire that went from 2,000 acres to 8,000 acres in just a matter of hours from Thursday night into Friday, and crews are just trying to maintain any sort of control on it. You hear sirens going. They are attacking this from the ground and from the air as well. On the other side of that, we have one fire, and then on this side, we have one fire. You see these crews here. They've been caravanning out in almost zero visibility, trying to get a handle again on these very fast-moving flames, and it again just highlights a little bit of what they are up against when you talk about all of these fires. For right now, though, we're going to go try to get to a safe location. I'm Omar Jimenez reporting along the 101 freeway here in Southern California. I'll send it back to you.
Newly released images from satellites that look down on North Korea have identified more than 12 missile operating bases that the communist country hadn't declared. But the significance of this is up for debate. On one hand, American intelligence agencies have known about these sites for a long time. On another, U.S. President Donald Trump suggested in a news conference last week that North Korea had stopped working on its missile program. He and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made history over the summer. They became the first sitting leaders of the U.S. and North Korea to meet face-to-face. But there's been a slowdown in negotiations between the two countries. And though North Korea says it's taken some steps to get rid of its nuclear weapons, the main concern of the United States, some experts say the moves that the communist country has made are cosmetic and reversible. Still, others say that North Korea never promised to get rid of its missile programs and that it may need the bases in the satellite pictures for self-defense. So do these missile bases indicate that North Korea will find a way to remain powerfully armed no matter what happens with the U.S., or are they insignificant when compared to the possibility that North Korea could eventually give up its nuclear weapons? There's disagreement over this. And it's another example of how analyzing the country, what its intentions are, what problems or successes it has been so difficult. North Korea is secretive. Its government controls and limits the media. Even the foreign journalists who are allowed in are closely watched by the authoritarian dictatorship.
North Korea has been like this black hole.
That's what it looks like, an island without electricity in one of the brightest parts of the world.
North Korea is probably the hardest intelligence target of all.
They are putting together a program to keep intelligence assets focused on North Korea.
As far as information is concerned, they want to keep it hermetically sealed.
It's just basically a catalog of the American imperialists' transgressions on the Korean Peninsula over the years. It's quite amazing, anti-American document. Journalists are not often adequately trained to do diplomacy or espionage or intelligence, although sometimes it feels like what we do is very similar. The research, building contacts and sources, but we're not trained for it. I've been traveling there for 10 years. I also was the first American so many North Koreans met, so I felt the burden of representing my country. Of course, I don't look like a typical American according to their propaganda. That was something that helped me because I didn't look like their stereotypes and their caricatures. I mean, we think that we have caricatures of North Koreans. Well, they have caricatures of Americans as well, and I didn't look like it. But that also was an opportunity for me to explain that Americans do include people of Korean ancestry and people of all kinds of ancestry. So it was interesting what I used in terms of the diversity of America to try to win the North Koreans over. I became the first American journalist who was allowed to become one of the local press corps. So I felt like I had to play the role of a diplomat, and I had to do a lot of negotiations. I would say that 90% of my time was spent negotiating. It is the most challenging assignment for a journalist. While we were not under fire in terms of bombs, we were under surveillance. That is a different kind of warfare. It is psychological. One of the things I like to do when I go to North Korea is to pick up their propaganda, and primarily propaganda in Korean, to see how it's being conveyed to the North Koreans. These are the type of books that most foreign journalists wouldn't know to bring back because they're in Korean. But it helps me to understand how they're using the Pueblo for their propaganda.
The situation of the captured ship USS Pueblo, as grave as it was, must be handled with restraint.
January of 1968, the U.S. military had sent a spy ship, a very small, reconfigured ship, to the waters off North Korea's east coast to see what kind of naval activity North Korea was up to, and also to see what kind of activity the Soviet Union was up to in those waters. The crew of 83, well, 82, because one of them did die in the fight, they were in North Korean captivity for 11 months while these negotiations for the release dragged on. 11 months that they say was just pure, literal torture, where they were beaten, kept in extremely harsh conditions. I'm sure that these crew members went through extended periods of PTSD, and then to come back to a country that wasn't interested in their ordeal over these years must have been emotionally exhausting as well.
This is the pieces of that bullet.
The ship itself serves as a war trophy, but you realize everything in there is like a totem to anti-Americanism. Everything has been kept and preserved. You cannot help as an American but just get chills up your spine.
10-second trivia. Which of these places is located in the Irish Sea? The Bay of Biscay, Aran Islands, Inner Hebrides, or Isle of Man? The only one of these places located directly between England and Ireland is the Isle of Man. And our last story takes you to the Isle of Man, where you might think this is a grand castle that's overlooked the sea for centuries. Not only is it new, but it's 15 inches tall. And it's one of a series of miniature buildings popping up across the island, the work of a Swedish art group called Anonymaus MMX. They were apparently inspired by fairy tales of the island, and they wanted their buildings to look like they'd always been there. It may look like a tiny house, but it's more like a dolly house, fit to fit a Minnie Mouse who may find it enormous. For us to just get through the door and scamper on the tiny floor, you're right on if you're sensing that it takes some real condensing. It's as small as it's magical, as mini as it's mighty. Because it's as diminutive as it is diminutive, my mind must be like a sieve. What rhymes with diminutive? I'm Carl Azuz, and I'm out.